There are more than a few features expected for the next Star Citizen update, with a few making huge changes to the game at large. Private Arena Commander servers on new maps means better access to fun gameplay quicker. And Master Modes testing means our first look at the new flight model changes. And of course, Port Olisar is leaving. Oh, and the Hull C. Like I said, some good stuff. But there are also several possibilities that may show up, but are less likely given the release view of the update. In this early preview of Alpha 3.20, I've got all the tea for you. Everything expected in the next update, and a couple things we might see added in between now and the release. Remember to keep an eye out for that secret code for a bonus entry into my Ares Inferno giveaway linked down below, and enjoy. Thank you for coming to my Tomato Talk. Most of what has already been confirmed for 3.20 are the Arena Commander updates. In this case, confirmed means they've been locked in on the roadmap and will definitely be in the update. We've been reading about these updates since as early as July of last year, and we know the team that left Firesprite before Sony bought the company stayed on Star Citizen to work on this game mode a couple years back. Since then, it's been receiving feature updates to bring it more in line with what you'd expect from a large-scale mixed arms shooter. Better score tracking, more maps, the ability to spawn in specific multi-crew seats, better kill cams, and more. Some new maps are coming in from the PU, giving you a great chance to train and master the more contested areas in the verse. Old maps are also being redone. Racetracks, FPS maps, and dogfighting maps will all be brought into Arena Commander as a stand-apart segment for quick, closed server fun for players in a hurry and looking for a private place to host events. These updates really flesh out this game type and bring it back into focus like before 3.0. I actually think for the foreseeable future, this might offer the best opportunity for people to play Star Citizen while the PU still figures out its problems with stability. This also just has a great potential to turn into its own standalone game, but for now, it'll be accessed from the main menu like always. And some of these new Arena Commander game modes will include Master Modes as well. This is the new flight model that has been running in Squadron 42 since last year. This flight model is meant to separate navigation mode from combat mode through the use of a speed buffer. In combat mode, your ship has slower top speed and no boost, but it's able to maximize weapons and shields. In navigation mode, your power will be used to maximize top speed and your quantum drive. One of the less talked about additions of Master Modes is Quantum Boost. While I don't think it will be included in this Arena Commander testing, it is significant in that it introduces mid-distance exploration through a travel speed that's about 1/10 the speed of quantum travel. Thus, players will be able to scan on a mid-distance level for points of interest, look at that point, and tap a button to fly there at high speed. The launch time will be almost instant. A lot of different locations are being built for this kind of discovery right now, and players will be able to go in whatever direction they want when the feature arrives. Think of it like Elite Dangerous Super Cruise. It's something we've been wanting for a while, and I think the most exciting part of Master Modes, but I don't think it will be included in navigation mode when we get this testing in Arena Commander. The transition between navigation mode and combat mode will vary between ships and ship type. It will also be adjustable via engineer tuning and different component combinations. Ultimately, this is a bit of an arcadey change with some immersive elements mixed in. It will likely be in limited testing for quite some time and is going to take a while to get right across all the ships in this game. So I'll have a video fully explaining it towards the end of the year. But if you just can't wait, I recently went over the history of the flight speed changes, what led to Master Modes, and the detailed changes of the new feature in a recent video. I'll leave that down below in the relevant links. Something less spoken about, but in the works for a while, are handling improvements for all wheeled vehicles. This feature was recently confirmed to be coming in 3.20, so expect to see better vehicle handling soon. Ever since implementation, the physics of wheeled vehicles have suffered from rampant floatiness and gravity-defying logic. Over the last couple of years, we've seen changes that are meant to make the experience tailor more closely to the environment you're driving in. Now, vehicles will feel a bit more weighty when bouncing off jumps, and you'll no longer be able to act like Mass Effect Mako on the side of a mountain. This progress on wheeled mechanics will hopefully pave the way for two-wheeled vehicles like the Tumbril Ranger, likely to be a very common ground exploration companion whenever we get it. The Hull C is a game-changing ship. As one of the most popular ships in the fiction, it is known for being the go-to cargo hauler for most mid to large scale enterprises. That being said, it will be entering the game in a bit of a mystery. I won't drag up all the details here, we've already talked about that, but long story short, it might not actually be ready to change the game when it finally comes to launch. It's not all bad. Being such a large ship with such a unique role means the ship will play differently right off the bat. So you are getting some diversified gameplay as a cargo hauler hopping in this ship when it comes in. Players won't be able to land this ship with cargo on planetary surfaces. Because of this, they'll be running station-to-station cargo trips, which will offer a different experience for players and likely have different economics of scale from a station-to-planet trade route. Along with this requirement is that of waiting for the cargo to load. This week, we saw an update to the roadmap that includes this functionality as its own deliverable. While this does mean cargo loading timers and boxes up to 32 SCU, it specifies the Hull C and LEO stations, so this could be rather limited in the first patch. If so, most players won't notice any difference in the cargo hauling of 3.20, but it is nice to know more diverse cargo containers are coming to the game. Over time, this will expand to include actual physical crew needed to be hired for the process. This is a big part of the logistical gameplay of hardcore cargo hauling that will make you decide between money and time to get the job done. And the transition will continue from these timers coming in 3.20, which are only following the physicalization of cargo in 3.18. What we don't know is when we will move beyond timers and see proper missions, supply and demand, and economic simulation that makes the Hull C the game changer that it actually is. The other ship coming in this patch is actually a bomber, and it will be relegated to 3.20.1. The A1 Spirit is a smaller version of the A2 Hercules, and better looking in my opinion. Its advantage comes in the form of 10 size 5 bombs meant for more precise attacks than its bigger brother. But like its bigger brother, there aren't actually any meaningful things to bomb outside of other players. So for now, it's not very useful. Also weird that this ship would release before its cargo variant, the C1, which I can only imagine takes less custom work. Seraphim Station will finally be replacing Port Olisar as the Crusader port of calling. The main reason this is being done is the same reason Lorville saw an update last patch. As the game changes and gameplay is added, old locations need to accommodate. Cargo deck functionality, medical clinics for respawning, security stations to turn in bounties, and hangars to protect folks from getting blown up are all additions that improve the space station experience. And while many players prefer the nostalgic simplicity and overall more friendly layout in Port Olisar's design, it had to be updated at some point. I do think there's some room for improvement in the space station experience right now, and I went over it in pretty deep detail on a supporter video recently, but for now I really appreciate having a space station to spawn at in Crusader that's not Grimhex. Rumor has it the station will have a proper sending off at some point, but it's kind of disappointing that we don't see that right now, as the hype will always fade as time goes on. I do hope we see the name come back in whatever the original spawn location will be for newcomers from Star Citizen in the future, but for now we'll just have to wait and see what happens. The other Crusader locations, floating islands similar to those in Orison, have actually been pushed back to 3.20.1, likely in the following month after release. Both ArcCorp and Crusader suffer from having no ground locations like bunkers and outposts, robbing players of gameplay. And while building interiors will greatly expand ArcCorp, Crusader will need to rely on floating platforms much like those in Orison to provide gameplay areas. These platforms will be added across the planet in 3 locations to add more possibilities for missions, with the added bonus of not being in the actual city of Orison. Not a major addition, but one that will continue to benefit us as more missions can be triggered there. Speaking of missions, over the last year the missions feature team has gained a lot more visibility and development. We've seen the signs as new locations get added with missions, besides the sand caves, and as new gameplay gets added to the games with actual missions in tow, like salvage. The team has a lot more planned for the short and long term of the game. In the immediate future, we are looking at the addition of another salvage mission, one that requires players to specifically scrape the hull off of certain pirate ships before security arrives to verify who the ships belong to. Retrieve consignment missions are a new mission type that combines some old gameplay. These missions, like the Crusader floating platforms though, have been reserved for a subsequent 3.20.1 patch. In these missions, players will need to infiltrate UGFs to find datapads carried by NPCs inside. These datapads will provide information to players which identifies packages that need to be taken and exfiltrated. As players take part in this mission, more enemies will spawn, more datapads will be dropped, and more money can be earned. It's meant to scale well over time, so we'll see how this pans out as a new PvE mission for groups. Now these new missions are interesting, but the better options are actually not yet on the roadmap release view, so we aren't sure yet if they will be in the next update. So from here on, I'm going to touch on a few possible additions that may sneak into 3.20 or 20.1, or may not even have a release view card on the roadmap. So what other missions are there to see? Mining missions have also been talked about quite a bit this year, and while they weren't included in the major mining update of 3.19 this year, I did expect to see them in the next patch. These missions would be a lot like salvaging contracts. You pay a small amount, get the location of guaranteed minerals, and get to take home whatever you find. This will be a great way to introduce players to mining gameplay, but for some reason no confirmation of when they'll arrive. Hopefully shortly after they do though, we see these on the FPS level as well. Moving on to locations, we've been hearing about new derelict locations for a little while now. These locations were delayed out of 3.19, and while we've been told they'll be in 3.20, they're still not on the release view. These derelicts will act as even more new locations for upcoming missions to be distributed for more variety. There's actually a healthy amount of content like this being added this year, but the server speed just can't keep up right now. These locations are also just more assets being added to the library of derelicts that can be added on planets and star systems in the future. They are also using a new method of ship aging that allows for wreck sites that have degraded over time based on how long they've been there. This is where the narrative team needs to jump in and give us some audio logs and journals to find that will explain the crashes and the lives of those who took part in them. But for its first release, these will likely just be some 15 new derelict location types in Stanton, hopefully in 3.20 or 3.20.1. Then there were the hopeful economy updates. The only real sign this may be a thing in 3.20 is that the Systemic Services and Tools team has reported some work to support the Hull C release. But nothing was stated as being economy related, so this could just have to do with how the ship is being loaded. Either way, it's not much to go off of, so I wouldn't put my hopes on it, but changes to the economy to help boost, diversify, and simulate changing demand would make 3.20 a much bigger patch for most players. And the inclusion of the Hull C without these changes is a true head-scratcher. While it's looking like the physicalized cargo loading with the Hull C is all we will see on the Cargo Refactor side, I'm really hoping there is at least some form of demand amongst the space stations in the game. If you want faster updates on this type of news, more in-depth explanations of Star Citizen's development, and a slightly more entertaining host, check out my second YouTube channel with my podcasts and other types of content. I am mourning some additions I was hoping to see in 3.20. Vehicle tractor beams, better platforming, freight elevators, bounty hunting, FPS scanning, and the new interaction system were all possibilities for this patch back at the beginning of the year. But as of now, 3.20 seems smaller than I think it was meant to be. We're still at least a month out though, so keep an eye out for more smaller additions and late confirmations in the next several weeks. Platforming, weapon changes, AI updates, and a couple other quality of life improvements, but we'll just have to wait and see. If you missed the secret Ares Inferno bonus entry code in this video, which will get you extra entries into my current giveaway, check for it again and then hit the link down below to get entered into the giveaway at the end of the month. I hope you learned something new in this video, and I'll catch you in the next.